Good evening, everyone, and just a quick little break with protocol to start. I just want to thank staff so much for our 100th birthday celebration this weekend. It was a great celebration, and I just want to thank all the residents of Grimsby for coming to the downtown and having a great time, and we had absolutely zero incidents of any problems, and what a great time for our 100th birthday. So just thank you, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the open house for the regional and local official plan amendment applications for 502 Winston Road. Before we begin, I would like to provide the land acknowledgement. Niagara Region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendourong, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and the town of Grimsby stand with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, in promoting the wide stewardship of the lands on which we live. The basic premise of this open house is to provide the opportunity for the public to provide input on the proposed application. I would like to stress that there have been no decisions or recommendations made by council or planning staff on these applications. To ensure a fair process, members of council are to hear public input but not engage in debate about the merits of the application. Opinions on the application should not be made at this time. Members will have the opportunity to express all their views and concerns when the final staff report and recommendation comes forward. A subsequent public meeting will be held at a later date. In accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and public engagement will be welcome then as well. The meeting is conducted in accordance with the town's procedural bylaw. All participants are asked to conduct themselves with decorum and respect, and provide the opportunity for all members of the public to express their opinion in an environment of tolerance on all points of view and free of intimidation. The intent is to create a venue and to encourage people to participate in the process and provide their input. With us this evening is John Arians, Riddy Hayter, and Mike Crow, IBI Group. Planning staff in attendance, Adam Gignac, planner, Terry Donia Edwards, senior planning supervisor, and Walter Basics, assistant director of planning. Regional planning staff in attendance, Diana Morelli, Alexander Morrison, and Pat Busnello. Tonight we will start with staff providing a brief presentation outlining the process in the application. Next, the consultant team will provide an overview of the proposal, and that will be followed by an opportunity for you to ask questions. If you have not already done so, please ensure that you have signed in so you will be informed of future meetings on this proposal. As we navigate the virtual open house meeting, we asked all participants for your patience. Each participant will be called in order and will be provided 10 minutes to speak. Each presenter may speak only once. If you hear your comment presented by someone else, please do not duplicate the remarks. All of the comments are being recorded and will be taken into consideration. When you are called, we ask that you state your name and address. Persons addressing council should confine their remarks to the business at hand and shall direct their comments or questions to the chair. Staff are taking notes of all questions asked this evening. At the end of the delegations, the consultant will be asked to respond to all of the questions and comments raised. If you feel that your questions have not been responded to this evening, you can email our planning department at planning@grimsby.ca. Good evening, Adam. You will lead us off. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Jordan. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Gignac, and I'm a planner who is working with the town. I just wanted to thank you all for taking the time to join us for this open house this evening. So the proposal that will be discussed this evening is a proposed regional official plan amendment and local official plan amendment for the property known as 502 Winston Road, also known municipally as 321 Hunter Road. So just to begin this open house, I'll be going through this brief presentation, providing you all with some of the insight into the process of this application, as well as to briefly introduce the proposal itself, though I'll leave most of that for the applicants. We also do have staff from the region of Niagara in attendance who will provide some details about the provincial and regional policy for the regional official plan amendment application. And following these presentations, we have John Arians and Rudy Hayter from the IBI Group here to provide some greater details about the application. After their presentation, there will be time to ask any other questions or comments that you may have about the application. So just to go over the purpose of the meeting tonight, we would like to provide you all with an overview of the planning process for these types of applications. This includes the process from start to finish, where exactly the town is in this process. An overview of the policy and regulatory framework shall also be provided, including the relevant official plan policies that are in place.
Adam, sorry to interrupt you. Do you mind just putting that into presentation mode? I don't think the slides are advancing.
Oh, no? A little better, Peter?
Yeah, I think you had the right screen. You just have to put it into presentation mode once you're in the PowerPoint. Yeah, that looks better.
How's that? Okay, perfect.
Can you do full screen?
There we go. So just to resume, so an overview of the policy and regulatory framework shall be provided, including the relevant official plan policies that are in place. The applicants are here to provide with some additional details about the proposal, and finally, we're here to answer questions that may be had about the application and gather some feedback. So all this feedback would be taken into consideration and identify potential revisions that may be needed on the application. All right, so why can plans or bylaws change? Under the Planning Act, authority is provided to submit applications for development plans that may not meet the current official plan or zoning bylaw. In the case of this application, neither the regional official plan amendments or regional official plan or local official plan requirements can be met, so amendments are needed for both. The town's role in this process is to process these applications that come in, including the regions being processed by the region. These applications are only able to amend the official plan if it is determined that the proposed changes comply with the overall intent of the plan and relevant policy, including provincial and regional policy. So here we have a flowchart that outlines some of the major milestones in the planning process. An application for an official plan amendment starts with a pre-consultation meeting with town staff and any relevant agencies. So this includes, but isn't limited to, the Niagara Escarpment Commission, Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, the Region of Niagara, etc. So this meeting outlines the requirements that a potential applicant would need for an application submission. Once an application is ready, the applicant would submit the required documents and fees to the town for the town to review for completion. And upon the application being deemed complete, a notice is sent out and agencies are asked for comments. The public is also able to provide comments at this time. For this application, any documents related to the proposal are posted on the current planning applications page on the town's website, and notices for open houses and public meetings are also posted at this location. So we are currently at the public open house stage, which offers a bit of an introduction on the application to all of you. So this open house will be followed by a public meeting, which will provide further opportunity for comments. A public meeting will be booked at a future date. Along the way, revisions may be made to the application, and any concerns from agencies, town staff, or members of the public will be looked at. After the public meeting, if all of the concerns about the proposal are believed to have been met, staff will prepare a recommendation report for council regarding the application. So as there is a concurrent local and regional official plan amendment applications, the applications would first go before Town's Council with a decision rendered prior to going before the Regional Council for a decision. And following the decisions by the councils, there would be opportunity to appeal. So to stay informed about these applications, you're invited to provide your mailing address to the planning department. By doing so, you would receive any notice of future meetings, information on how to obtain a staff report, information about speaking in front of the committee and council, and information on how a decision on the application can be appealed. So the planning process is an open process, so it does allow the public to have a say. This open house is one of those opportunities to give your opinion on this application, with the public meeting as another opportunity. So you are invited to write a letter or email addressed to the planning department at planning@grimsby.ca and to the region of Niagara at developmentplanningapplications@niagararegion.ca. You can also send a copy of your letter or email to your councilors as an alternative. And these contacts will be posted on that current planning applications webpage tomorrow morning. So now briefly, I'll pass it over to Diana Morial, who will go over the regional and official planning or regional and provincial planning framework.
Thank you, Adam. The slide before you provides an overview of the planning framework for the province of Ontario. You will note that the process is sequential from left to right. On the left side, the policies are the most highest level, and as we work to the right, the policies are more specific. The far right section discusses province-wide policies, starting with the Planning Act. The Planning Act is provincial legislation that describes how land uses can be controlled and who controls them. The Planning Act authorizes the creation of provincial policy statement and states that all Planning Act applications shall be consistent with provincial policy statement and conform with provincial plans. The provincial policy statement focuses on growth and development within urban areas and supports the viability of rural areas through encouraging agriculture-related and on-farm diversified uses. The provincial policy statement lists high-level policies that must be incorporated into all provincial and regional and local official plan policies and plans. In Niagara, there are 3 specific provincial plans that guide land use planning. In particular, the Greenbelt Plan aims to protect agricultural and environmental lands. The Greenbelt Plan contains special provisions for Niagara region, which is within the Niagara Peninsula tender fruit and grape area of the protected countryside. Agricultural lands within this area require additional protection. A regional official plan includes a vision to protect land uses and make sure there is a consistent approach to land use decisions across the region. A local official plan sets out a vision, goals, and objectives and includes policy to guide land use decisions while providing greater detail in terms of land use designations and policies which reflect specific characteristics of the town. Next slide, please. 502 Winston is located within the Greenbelt Plan under the Niagara Peninsula tender fruit and grape area and has a specialty crop designation. Policy 3.1.2 of the Greenbelt Plan prohibits the specialty crop area lands from being redesignated in official plans for non-agricultural uses. Greenbelt designations can only be changed by the province through its coordinated plan review process, which occurs every 10 years. The regional official plan designates these lands as unique agriculture area lands, and policy 5B.5 prohibits the redesignation of these lands. The application before you today proposes to redesignate the subject lands from unique agricultural area to rural area under the Niagara official plan. Back to you, Adam.
Thank you, Diana. So just to briefly go over the proposed local official plan amendment. So the Town of Grimsby's official plan designates 502 Winston Road as a specialty crop area, tender fruit and grape lands designation. This designation permits a mixture of agricultural and agriculturally related uses, including a single detached dwelling on an existing lot, bed and breakfasts, and home industries or occupations. And a full list of these permitted uses can be found in section 3.3.2.1 of the town's official plan. So the applicants are proposing to change the designation of 502 Winston Road in the town's official plan from specialty crop area to rural area. The official plan would also be modified to allow refinement of rural boundaries onto specialty crop areas through the concurrent regional official plan amendment. And just to go over the existing rural area designations, that designation permits agriculturally and agriculturally related uses, such as a single detached dwelling, bed and breakfast, home industry or occupation, and other rural uses, a full list of which can be found in section 3341 of the town's official plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Now we'll move to John Arians and Riddhi Hayter with their presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Jordan, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, and staff. My name is John Arians. I'm a planner with the IBI group. Riddhi Hayter is also a planner with IBI. Our office is in Hamilton, and we've had the pleasure of doing various projects throughout Niagara and the Grimsby area. We do have a brief PowerPoint presentation to share with you, and as the mayor indicated, following, we would be pleased to answer any questions. So I'm here on behalf of, officially it's 502 Winston Road, Inc. They are part of the New Horizon Development Group. New Horizon is a prominent home builder and developer in Burlington, Hamilton, and Niagara. They purchased this property, which I typically refer to as St. Vladimir's, because St. Vladimir's was the previous use of this property, back in May of 2019, and they've owned it for the last 3 years. As you can see on this slide, the property is outlined in red. It is located north of Winston Road, to the west of Hunter Road, and to the east of the telecommunication towers. The property also has substantial frontage along Lake Ontario. What you can also see on this slide is the existing buildings, the outdoor recreation areas, the parking lots. There is absolutely no agricultural use on this property. No tender fruits are grown, no cash cropping, no hay is harvested from this land. For the last 35 years, there has not been one agricultural crop taken from this property. Currently, the building has been rented out to a church group, so it continues with an institutional focus. These are some photographs showing the existing facilities on the property, the landscape lawns, the parking area, the building that's on the property. And as you can see, we are surrounded on the east and on the south with urban roads, Winston and Hunter, which form the urban boundary. Again, the photos do not demonstrate, do not show any agricultural use on the property whatsoever. Next slide, please, Riddhi. So in 2015, the provincial Greenbelt was up for its 10-year review, and the town of Grimsby themselves requested that the province remove areas 1 and 2, as are shown on this sketch, approximately 250 hectares from the Greenbelt. And at the same time that Grimsby Council wanted these lands removed from the Greenbelt, the area in green was proposed to be added to the Greenbelt. This was what we refer to as a swap and exchange, taking land out of the Greenbelt, which really had no agricultural use, and substituting better agricultural lands and making them part of the Greenbelt. And this was purely a town initiative. And in support of this town initiative, on the next slide, the town retained Dr. Michael Hoffman, who is a renowned agronomist, who did an agricultural assessment of these areas 1 and 2, and Dr. Hoffman concluded that these lands should be removed from the specialty crop area because they are relatively poor for the production of crops. The soil capability is not the greatest, and there's land fragmentation. In addition, Dr. Hoffman also suggested that there is no farm industry here. Arkells closed many years ago. There's no food terminal. There's no cooperatives in this area. It's an isolated pocket of agricultural land. As a result of those submissions from 2015, however, the provincial government did not make any changes to the Greenbelt Plan. So the 2017 Greenbelt Plan did not propose to remove these areas. So notwithstanding the town's very generous offer of substituting 923 hectares for 250, the province did not agree, and as staff just outlined, these lands are still captured by the provincial Greenbelt and remain designated as part of the tender fruit and grape area or the specialty crop area, notwithstanding the town's own request to remove these lands entirely from the Greenbelt. Next slide. So today, as staff pointed out, we have the provincial growth plan. And the provincial growth plan designates Grimsby as a town and a village as part of the Greenbelt. And the growth plan does allow the consideration of proposed urban boundary expansion of a town and a village into the Greenbelt, provided that is justified through what's called a municipal comprehensive review. So in other words, if the town and region did a planning exercise to evaluate how much urban land they have, how much do they need, do we need expansions? If those expansions can be justified, the province allows the consideration of an expansion into the Greenbelt. However, expansions into specialty crop areas is prohibited. And that is why we are here today to seek an exemption to the specialty crop designation so that these lands can be considered for future urban purposes. Not that they will be considered, but they will simply be a candidate area. And as I will explain further, that is totally within the town and regional control, not a developer's control. Next slide, please. So our request is to redesignate these lands from specialty crop to rural. And quite simply, that reflects the existing uses. That reflects the fact that there is no agricultural use in this area. There are no specialty crops grown whatsoever. The land is fragmented and there is no support for agriculture in this area. And what it does do, it allows them to be considered for future urban purposes during the next municipal comprehensive review. So in simple terms, we're requesting a change from specialty crop to rural, which will allow the town and the region to consider them for possible future development purposes. And it's only that consideration that is before us today. There is no application to develop these lands for urban purposes. In fact, we don't even have a concept plan for these lands whatsoever. Next slide, please. In support of our request, we hired a second specialist agronomist. This is DBH Soil Consulting, who's a recognized consultant with specialty in agriculture and agronomist. DBH concluded the same as Dr. Hoffman did in 2015, that these lands should not be considered specialty crop. First of all, there will be no change in agricultural land use. Not 1 inch of land will be removed from agriculture because there is no agriculture present today. The lands are fragmented. There is a clear transition from agriculture to a more rural or urban type of land base, and there is no agricultural support system in this area. In addition, the property has very low scores that prevent it from being considered prime agricultural area, and therefore it should not be considered as prime or specialty crop. Next slide. These are exactly the same conclusions that Dr. Hoffman came up with in 2015 on behalf of the town of Grimsby. This is just an excerpt from DBH's supporting agricultural study, which clearly show that these lands are fragmented, they're not used for agriculture today, and they have low soil classification. Next slide, please. So our request is to only designate the subject lands from specialty crop to rural. We're not dealing with the Rogers Towers. We're not dealing with the bigger lagoon. I see Bruce McKenzie is on the call. It has no impact on the lagoons whatsoever. It has no impact on the Department of National Defense property. We're simply dealing with St. Vladimir's. We're not representing any other property owners in this area. And as a result, our request simply recognizes the existing conditions that have been here for decades. It completely aligns with the town's own proposal during the 2015 Greenbelt Review. It does not alter or change any existing uses. It does not remove or alter any agricultural use or agricultural lands. And it does not ask for, nor does it result in any development rights. And I want to stress this because should the town and the region agree that this is not specialty crop, then during the next municipal comprehensive review, we will be there suggesting that this is an appropriate location for urban development. However, that decision is totally within the town and regional control, and as part of an MCR or municipal comprehensive review, a developer cannot appeal those decisions. So there is no risk to the town that the Ontario Land Tribunal is going to overturn any urban boundary request unless the town fully supports it. So there are no development rights being sought. There's no concept plan. There's no immediate threat to this property. All we are doing is we're requesting that the existing use of these lands be properly reflected as a rural designation rather than as specialty crop. So the next slide is my last slide. And again, we're simply stating the obvious. This is not farmland today. It hasn't been farmland for many years. The rural designation reflects what is there today. Urban uses are not on the table today. Maybe tomorrow, but the town and the region are in full control of those designations. No development concept, no developer appeal rights as part of an MCR process. It's entirely up to the town and the region to consider the future of these lands. Our suggestion is simply they are not specialty crop and they should not be treated as such. Those are my submissions, Mr. Mayor, and we'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you. Before we take questions, we'll move to the delegation portion. First up is Samantha Parada. Good evening, Samantha. All right, we don't see Samantha here yet, so we'll move to AJ Ferroni. Welcome, AJ.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, we can hear
Thank you
you.
for having
Go
me.
ahead. I think you're muted. You need to turn your mic on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can hear me now? The land was sold in 2020 for 600 or 700,000 an acre. It's now worth $1 million an acre. So whoever bought that must have bought that knowing or having any inclination that they could build on the land. Because it never would have been sold for that much an acre, would it not have been?
Yeah, we'll address questions after all the presenters. Is that all your comments then, AJ?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we'll move to Amanda Mercanti. Welcome, Amanda. All right, Amanda's not here. We'll move to Katie O'Brien. Katie, are you there?
I am here. I just have questions. I am not a presenter.
All right, you can ask your questions now then.
I'm just wondering how we could turn it back into agricultural land.
Yes, well, I don't think there's anyone here that's going to be able to answer that question now, but it certainly was agricultural land, and land that was agricultural land can always become agricultural land again, so, unless it's built on, so. All right, we're moving now to Jacob Bradsey. Welcome, Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Yeah, I'd just like to start off by introducing myself as a potential candidate for Ward 4 in this area. I know we can't answer a lot of land use questions at this time, but I'd like to just kind of share my concerns and concerns of residents in the area. A lot of them would really like to see the waterfront trail extended through this, and some parks and playgrounds, maybe something like a outdoor hockey rink with ammonia lines. My question to John is if any of that has been considered at this time. And you can answer this time. I won't need a full 10 minutes to present. As well as potential parking to the northeast quadrants there at the start of the trail. If contributing to any of these community services has been considered.
Mr. Mayor, do you want me to answer that now?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Thank you. As I indicated, sir, there is no concept plan for these lands. We have absolutely no idea, should they become urban purposes in the future, what that would look like. I can tell you this, however, that when a development application proceeds, things like municipal parkland, trailheads, parking lots are all part of the municipal review and approval process. And given that there is a large neighborhood waterfront park immediately to the east, I think it would only be logical to expand that park to include a section of this property. But again, there's absolutely no development plan, no concept whatsoever. We're simply trying to change the designation, which would open the door for considering future development lands. What that form will be, it'll be up to those applications at that time, should that opportunity really present itself. Thank you.
The land being bought so much in acres, it's obviously been some sort of thought, some sort of planning into stress.
Jacob, sorry to interrupt you. We're just having some issues. I don't know if it's just us in the council chambers, but we're having a hard time hearing your microphone.
It's working now?
I think one of your mics cut out. You might just want to check the source of your microphone.
I'll defer to the next speaker if there's some microphone issues here.
Thanks, Jacob. I think I understand you. You said to move on to the next speaker until you can figure that out. So we'll come back to you at the end.
Thanks, Peter. Now we move to Walter Drexy. Walter? All right, I don't see Walter, so we'll move to Dee Roberts. Dee Roberts, are you there? All right, I know Jim Howden's there. I see him. So, Jim, you're up now.
Thank you, Mary Jordan. I'm going to take a bit of a different approach on this in that these lands adjoin what we call the radio tower lands. And the radio tower lands consist of approximately 27 hectares. And it's my view that we should be considering the parcel under discussion and the radio lands as one parcel, essentially. And in fact, perhaps if the radio towers were ever decommissioned, the radio lands could in fact be turned back to agricultural use and even grow grapes. So I think to remove these lands from specialty crops, it should be a very high hurdle. And we need to look at the radio lands at the same time. If this property is upgraded to rural or agricultural rural, the same thing will probably happen to the radio lands. And I should actually mention that I'm running for councillor in Ward 4 and knocking on doors in Ward 4. This issue comes up frequently, several times a day, actually. And people are asking me what my position would be if I was on council. So my position at this time would be, would probably decline it, in that I think the hurdle to remove it has not been reached yet. Also, I think we should actually know what's planned for the property. Is it going to be 3 or 4 high-rise condo buildings, or is it going to be medium density or low-rise buildings? So a lot to consider. And that's my comments, Mary Jordan.
Thank you, Jim. Up next, we have Kevin Bellilo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually hadn't come prepared to speak or ask questions, just to attend an open house and learn more about the proposal. So I will gratefully pass it on to the next person.
Thank you, Kevin. Up next, we have Barb Leatherwick. Barb, are you there?
She's muted.
Barb, you're muted.
Sorry about that.
All right, we can hear you now, Barb. Thank you. Go ahead.
My question was answered. I simply needed a definition of what the rural classification would be.
All right, thank you, Barb. All right, next we have Bruce McKenzie. Hi, Bruce.
Good evening, Mayor Jordan, and I am pleased to be able to speak to you tonight, along with the citizens of the community, staff from the town of region of Niagara, town of Grimsby, and representatives of the IBI group. Some of the information or the questions that I may have tonight in my prepared talk have been answered, but I hope that you will bear with me for a minute or two, because I think these questions are questions that the regular citizens of Grimsby may have. My first concerns have to deal with the presentation of the ads in the local newspapers by the town of Grimsby and the region of Niagara. The ads did not show the greenbelt or urban boundaries. 2, the ads did not show or discuss what the possible outcomes of what rural means. Now, we've been given an idea of that tonight by Mr. Aarons, and I thank him for that. But the general public doesn't know what rural means. The ads did not show that the new draft of the official plan for Niagara region shows no need for any expansion of the urban boundary in Grimsby. Should the ads have shown that the proposed rezoning would remove lands from the greenbelt in Grimsby, expand the urban boundary, and explain that the official plans are not recommending such expansion, then the citizens would have been given a better picture of what a possible rezoning of the property would mean. The ads did not show in any way what the new landowner is considering for the property. Now again, thanks to Mr. Ahrens, we have an idea that there is no such plans today. But he did open our eyes as to what could happen should the lands be changed in zoning to rural, which means possible consideration in the future for urban development, which means expansion of the urban boundary, which means lands taken out of the green belt in Grimsby. I think I am not alone in finding these types of ads about planning issues being not complete and difficult for citizens to understand. They are written in what I call planningese. The town ads for this application state that the rezoning is from specialty crop lands to rural. In Niagara region ads, the property is shown as unique soils, but nowhere is the green belt mentioned. I cannot see how the public is expected to be aware that these classifications of lands mean that they are in the greenbelt. Citizens may have a feeling that the term rural is not threatening. Using the term rural here might mean organic gardens with a house to some. Not identifying the owner and their planned intentions causes the citizens to be unaware of what lies ahead. In the town ad, it states, town staff have not reviewed the application yet and are still waiting comments and analysis from other departments and agencies, as well as comments from the public. Without being told what the effects of changing to rural means and what the developer plans are, then how could the public make meaningful input? We've been basically shown a blank piece of paper. The town ad refers to a development, but nowhere is there mentioned in the related websites what the development might be. I take it that the use of the word development in the town's ad may have been a mistake. I hope it was. Presently, some active development projects at Grimsby on the Lake, as the neighborhood is referred to, are not completed or started. As an example, the Lozani development on the east side of Casablanca, the Casablanca Hotel redevelopment, those two have not started, and we're still waiting for how many residential units may be in them. The Rose Haven condo development has not been occupied yet, but it's near completion. Today, there are between 1,500 and 1,800 residential units in the neighborhood of Grimsby on the Lake, with Rose Haven, Lozani development, Casablanca Hotel redevelopment, and the third phase of the LJM development. We are looking at another 1,900 units, likely at a minimum. This is more than what is already present in the Grimsby Lake neighborhood. How can the town and region even consider another development? For we do not know what we are dealing with in terms of the number of residential units and the future population in this area. I would like to note that this parcel of land, 502 Winston Road, is 5.7 hectares in size I would also like to point out that a developer presently proposing to the Ontario Land Tribunal a development on Francis Avenue in Stony Creek on only 2 hectares of land to have 3 40-story plus condominiums with 1,492 residential units. One can only imagine what a developer may propose for this site with 5.7 hectares, which is almost 3 times the size of the property in Stony Creek that I refer to. As to this community Grimsby on the Lake, I would like to ask where the lands for a community center and like-orientated activities, schools, library, playgrounds, churches, fire station are to be located. The planning for this area did not call for any land bank for the above-mentioned community services to serve the community's needs. Before contemplating another major development, should the town not find out how it is going to deal with the pressures and needs experienced by this community after those previously mentioned uncompleted developments are completed. We do not want the green belt in Grimsby or anywhere for that matter to be nibbled away at. The next review of the green belt is in 2027. People have to be patient and wait their turn and not try to force small towns into submission. A planning justification report was submitted by the planning consultants, IBI, to the region in Grimsby on behalf of the new landowner. The report as part of the rezoning application says a lot of things, but does not say that the new draft official plan for the region is not calling for urban boundary expansion in Grimsby. At this time, this new draft regional official plan has been submitted to the province for approval. Once it is returned by the province, then Grimsby has to update its own official plan to match or exceed the region's official plan. The planning justification report provided by the consultant to the town and region includes lengthy documents that were presented to the Greenbelt Coordinated Review by the office of the former mayor of Grimsby in 2015 and 2017 about his reasons for removing lands for the Greenbelt in Grimsby below this escarpment. As we know, the coordinated review, as mentioned by Mr. Ahrens, of the Greenbelt denied the request by the former mayor of Grimsby to remove lands from the Greenbelt below the escarpment. The planning justification report prepared by the consultants for the landowner does not make any mention of what the present mayor or council wishes for or what wishes for. Now, the timing of this process I find to be interesting. I am told that the region will not be dealing with this proposal until the new year and after the upcoming municipal election. We are also waiting for the new official plans for the town. The rezoning application is being presented to the town of Grimsby at a very awkward time. The land at 502 Winston Road is beside the largest green space on the south shore of Lake Ontario in Ontario. This green space, part of the green belt, reaches from the west boundary of the 50 Point Conservation Area to Hunter Road. It is approximately 163 acres in size. Again, I emphasize, this is the largest green space on the south shore of Lake Ontario in Ontario. We cannot afford to have it nibbled away at from around the edges. Allowing this application for rezoning could start an avalanche of rezoning applications in Grimsby. There are generations in front of us that should have their say on how these lands are used. Our generation has already made plenty of decisions, and we should wait and see how history looks at the results. Thank you, Mayor Jordan.
Thank you, Bruce. Next up, we have David Saratuk. David, welcome. All right, David doesn't seem to be here. Next up, we have Phil Pothen. Phil, are you there?
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Phil Pothen. I'm Council and Ontario Environment Program Manager with Environmental Defence, which is a national environmental NGO. But just to counter any suggestion from my friend Mr. Arians that this application is no big deal, nothing to worry about, just a minor interim step. Our national environmental organization sees it as important enough to get involved here today. And truth be told, I've dragged myself out of my sickbed to be here today. This is the first thing in 2.5 days that I've done. And I will tell you why this is a big deal, not a small deal, and it's something that your council needs to say a firm no to. We see small applications like this on every corner of the Greenbelt quite frequently, and they are rejected firmly and rightly so. And when they are approved, and if they are approved, the reason it's a big deal is that it signals a sort of open season on the Greenbelt as a whole. Because one of the most fundamental and important pieces of the Greenbelt regime is that it provides certainty that land within the Greenbelt is not going to be available for non-Greenbelt, non-agricultural uses. And we understand that there are mushy edges to this, but that's the essence, the value of the Greenbelt, is this certainty. Do not bet, do not pay a cent more for this land than you would pay if it was always going to be agricultural land, because it's in the Greenbelt. And Mr. Arian's clients, they made a choice, they made a gamble that, oh, well, we're going to bet against the Greenbelt's protection. We are going to hope that we will find a weak council, and I trust that this isn't one. We will find a group of constituents who aren't paying attention, who don't care about the Greenbelt, who don't care about the environment, and will slip one through under the eye of this council. And so what that does is then it puts a gleam in the eye of every other gambler out there, everyone hoping to nibble a piece off the edge of the Greenbelt. So there was a question asked, and I believe it was said that no one would have the answer, and that was, how do we turn this land back into agricultural land? And I don't know who it was. Well, I'll tell you a key part of the picture of how we turn this land back into agricultural land. And that is, first of all, that we kill this dream, that we kill those gamblers' dreams that it will be anything other than agricultural land ever. We have to give them a thumping, send them home crying with a firm no, never, ever will this be anything other than the uses that are permitted under his current designation. So that they go home and they are forced to resign themselves that they will need to either sell this land at an agricultural rate or else lower its rent to a level that I understand that he's listed certain obstacles to using the land for agricultural purposes. Things like, fragmentation of agricultural land. These are all real problems, but they're problems that reduce the utility of land for agriculture. At a low enough price, you will find someone willing to lease this land for an agricultural purpose. We know that there are people in the young farmers of Canada who are out there looking for small operations that they're willing to start, maybe try an unusual idea. They're willing to do that. But what you've got to do is you've got to crush Mr. Arian's client's dream. You've got to send them back. You've got to make it clear that that's the only use they will ever get out of this land. That's how you turn it back into agricultural uses, and that's what I'm urging you to do today. Crush Mr. Arian's client's dreams. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. Up next, we have Sharon Porter. Welcome, Sharon. All right, Jacob, are you there, and is your audio better now? We hope. Welcome, Jacob.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's much better.
That's much better. Actually, kind of where I wanted to go with that was kind of answering the last bit there. I was kind of just getting on. Wanted to build off AJ's points with the land being purchased for so much. There clearly must have been some sort of anticipation that rezoning and development would go their way. It kind of seems like they want us to take a leap of trust in changing this to rural. But I kind of think the leap of trust should go the opposite way, and maybe we should talk about donating some land or selling some land to the town for the waterfront and amenities to the residents in the area to get out of the condo and get active. Things like outdoor rinks, basketball, pickleball, playgrounds. I've heard the need for public washrooms. But yeah, I don't see any need to take a leap of faith at this time, unless one is given to us first, I guess. But that's all I got.
Thank you, Jacob. That's the end of our speakers. And are there questions? Yeah. Yeah, we'll go back to the consultants and staff to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I have been taking notes during some of the presentations, and I'd like to respond. The question from Ms. O'Brien about how do we turn it back to agricultural land, I'm going to suggest that that opportunity is long gone. I mean, we are on the edge of the urban area. We have no farm infrastructure, no farm community, no farm food terminals, nothing, none of that infrastructure is in place. The suggestion that, again, waterfront trails, parking, outdoor amenities for residents, you can't have any of those on the greenbelt. It's specialty crop. Agriculture is what's permitted, and only agriculture. So none of those uses are permitted today. With respect to Mr. McKenzie's concerns, first of all, with respect to the notice, that's why we have these open houses, so that clarity, questions can be answered, and you can't summarize everything in a one-page notice. And I'm defending my regional and town colleagues here. The open house clarifies it. And I'm going to stress that there is absolutely no changes to the greenbelt being proposed. This is a local official plan and a local regional plan. And as Bruce indicated, the regional plan is the 2051, and it has identified no urban boundary expansions in Grimsby. That more or less should give council a level of comfort that proper planning is underway. Even though we are positioning this land as a candidate, it has to go through a very fulsome justification process. And if the justification isn't there, it will remain part of the greenbelt, but designated rural. It doesn't change a thing with this designation. Mr. McKenzie was also critical of the fact that there's no development concept. Well, again, we're at that very beginning stage of a designation. To compare it to what my client is doing on Francis Road in Stony Creek is not appropriate. What you should be aware of, that Francis Road property does not have a maximum height. It does not have a maximum density. My client is pursuing the as of right potential for that property. Mr. McKenzie referred to the largest green space along the south shore of Lake Ontario. This is not green space, this is not parkland, this is the green belt. It's meant for agriculture and agriculture only. And that's not being changed by a designation to rural. It will remain part of the rural fabric. Now, with respect to Mr. Pothin and the environmental defense, when he suggests that the green belt will add certainty, the Greenbelt Plan and the Provincial Growth Plan allow towns and villages to expand into the Greenbelt if it can be justified. So that certainty is already flexible, if I can put it that way. When you go through a proper justification and you need more land, a town or a village may expand into the Greenbelt. That's an as of right today. It's not something that our client is added to the green belt. The provincial government has added that to the growth plan and the green plan. And as far as open door or open season on the green belt, I'm sure members of Grimsby Council are aware that each application has to be considered on its own merits. And the reference to the former mayor being the advocate for removing these lands in 2015, that was Grimsby Council, not just the mayor, it was the entire municipality that supported that initiative. So those are our submissions. And again, we welcome any further questions or further input, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, John, and thank you for everyone for your participation in the open house. The consultants and staff will take back your feedback. Please contact staff at planning@grimsby.ca if you have any additional comments or questions about the proposal after this evening. Everyone, the public meeting is closed. Good night and have a good evening. Thank you.